Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, CEO of Ecomcy. Today we bring you another special guest. His name is Mark Casey, and he's the CEO and founder of Mark Casey ACO, which is actually an agency that helps you with everything related to listing optimization and launch strategies. Actually, today's topic is going to be around his expertise, which is best practices for ACO in terms of implementing them for Amazon product listing. Now, let's not delay this further. Let me introduce you, Mark. How you doing today? Thank you for
Hey,
coming.
hey, doing well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
It's
I
good.
mean, I want
Yeah,
you to bring you on board because I know you have very good gold nuggets, as we call them in the Amazon community around ACO. So I think it would be nice to touch on all of them. So people, of course, listen to this episode can start implementing them into their Amazon business.
for sure.
However, before we start touching that topic, of course, I want you to give you some chance to introduce yourself in more depth in terms of how you got started into the Amazon e-commerce space and how that made you, of course, jump into opening this agency where you provide the service to help Amazon sellers. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So just a quick rundown. Like my background is in marketing and branding. That's what I
That's
did
great.
way before. Yeah. That's what I've been doing for close to 10 years now. I got an offer to work under a very large brand. They're a nine-figure brand now, meaning selling
That's
over
great.
$100 million. Yeah. They started on Amazon actually. So I joined their team. I helped them scale. I helped them kind of like build things up. I had no idea anything like about Amazon and e-commerce. It was early on in the game too. No one was really talking about it. So I decided to join. I was laughing at the position, honestly speaking. I joined in. I learned a lot there. After that, I said, like I want to, start doing this more full time, and I even got like people started reaching out to me and asking me like, hey, like can you shed some light on this topic or that
Yeah,
topic? So I just started learning and started meeting different people, connecting with different people, and really like starting to pick up a lot of different things. What kind of got me out there was I was asked to speak one time, and I love speaking, but not like in public when there's like everyone watching you
like most
there.
people. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, now I'm more used to it, but in the beginning, he's like, okay, it'll be 40 people, a small conference. I'm like, okay, fine. I get there's 120 people in a
And
room,
you
which
freeze. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was like, I'm just gonna take it easy. So I spoke all Amazon related things, and basically from there that kind of like got me off the ground. But our agency is kind of a mix of like my marketing experience and my Amazon knowledge. We kind of combine those two together, and that's how our agency really came to life, and it's been growing ever since.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I have seen your trajectory and your focus, which, if I'm not mistaken, is specifically ACO. I mean, that's part of the name of the agency. So
For
I
sure,
think
yeah.
for
I
sure
mean,
you guys specialize on that. And to be honest, that's why I think it's perfect to cover today's topic because I know you have all those tricks under your sleeve in terms of ranking and all that, and we're gonna for sure start touching those. I think before we start jumping into the technical side of everything that has to do with the ACO, I think most likely you get a lot the question related to ACO, which is some people think when they jump into Amazon that ACO is very similar to Google. So there's definitely some differences there. So
yeah.
let's start by touching the basics, and then of course we use that as a catapult to jump into the more technical side of
For
things. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I actually get that question pretty often. People are like, oh, it's the same. I'm like, no, it's not at all. Like, Amazon is its own ecosystem where you have to adapt to and you have to know how the algorithm works. Once you kind of figure that out, then you'll start seeing a lot of success with your listings and everything on the platform. So, Google SEO, if you want to get ranked to the first page, takes 3 to 6 months, depending on the
Mhm.
keyword. So, some
Yeah.
things are similar, like, like the keywords, the search volume, those are the search trend, like all those stuff are similar, but with Amazon, you could get something ranked within 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
Sometimes even sooner. So the whole ball game is just different. Everything works differently there. Like also, there's a lot more that Amazon takes into account. For example, like every click or every little thing you do takes account into the SEO and into the algorithm. As opposed to Google, it's one click and then it kind of there's not
Yeah.
as much involved. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think the good thing, I mean, and the main reason why people likes Amazon so much is that within a few days you can be ranking on the best keywords for your product, when in Google it
Yeah,
takes a lot of time for sure and resources. That's great. So
yeah,
now let's start diving more into, of course, what is Amazon SEO, right? So let's start by the mistakes first. I always like to bring to the table what are the mistakes people like you see in the space, and then we can start touching on strategies we can do to tackle those, right?
for sure.
So what are the number one type of mistakes you see people doing that are for sure harming the SEO in terms of Amazon?
For sure. A lot of people, even just starting with the listing content itself, because that's like the step one of the actual SEO. You
Hmm.
have to keep in mind that, yeah, you want it to sound good for the customers purchasing it. But between me and you, and obviously and honestly, no one is reading the description bullet points anymore. People are very visual, and that's a whole topic we could get into. But you have to teach Amazon's algorithm about your product. That's your should be your number one or two goal. And by doing that is making sure you have good and proper keywords in your listing. So people go and they spend so much money, or they think they could do it themselves, or whatever it is. They'll put up a whole listing and it sounds beautiful. You could sell it amazingly, but not on Amazon. Because when you
Yeah.
look for all those keywords, you're not putting them in your listing, you're not going to be indexed, and you're not going to be found. So a number one thing I would say is like people underrate the power and that there is when putting very strong keywords in your listing, but also going to the other end and not doing too much, not to keyword stuff, and put the same exact keyword in your title, bullet points, description like 10 different times.
Yes, I mean, I think keyword stuffing is something we see a lot, specifically in categories like electronics and all that. They
Yeah,
put
I was about to say,
all,
yeah,
all
iPhone,
the
iPhone.
fonts, iPhone 10, 11, 12,
Exactly.
15,000.
Yeah,
It's crazy. I mean, it makes for sure a very bad experience for the customer. I mean, of course, these are categories people is very price sensitive and they don't really read a lot the title and things like that. But there are some categories that we still see that happening, and for sure that's. I mean, they think people think that by doing this they're gonna rank higher, but the reality is that it's gonna decrease your conversion and it's gonna make the opposite of what you want, which is ranking higher. So it's a big
exactly. Yeah,
mistake.
it's a very big mistake that people do, and it's funny because especially in the electronics category, people put like every model of the phone, but like you're hurting yourself.
Yeah. Great. So, I mean, I think, of course, when it comes to optimizing, ACO is very important in terms of using the right keywords and everything. But I'm pretty sure you also agree that the branding you're implementing here is also key. Like, for example, the way you talk to your audience, maybe there are some specific keywords people use in your niche, making the listing maybe friendly tone, things like that. So, can you briefly touch on that and how you see that also benefiting the overall ACO experience of a listing on Amazon?
For sure. So the tone is very important because it really like the people who do read it and like look at your listing will get the impression of your brand based off there. And branding is very important on Amazon. It's not just putting up a product there and like, oh, whatever. People want to see like what the brand's about, what their values are, and what they sell. And they also want to make sure it's not some cheap Chinese product. They want to make sure it's a real company that actually spends money on quality and all that kind of stuff. So branding is very important. Oftentimes people use emojis, and emojis are only good in certain
Mm.
categories, but not everything. I believe it cheapens your product. If you have a good product or something
Yeah,
quality, emojis are not always the way to go. Some categories like toys and stuff like that, for sure, it
that's
looks
fun.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
but something like emojis on like a regular kind of product, I would suggest against it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're selling something like, I don't know, very premium makeup or a drink or something, you put
You don't
like,
want to see
I,
emojis there. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it completely destroy like the confidence that you put into the listing. Right.
exactly.
So now, when it comes to doing list optimization, I mean, you can be the best copywriter and know how to write the listing, but if you use the wrong keywords, I mean, you're still not gonna do a great job, right?
100%. Yeah, and I've seen it time after time. Someone came over to me. He said he hired a
Wow.
world class copywriter. I
Yeah.
think he paid like $700 for like a basic listing.
Wow.
And I even said, I was like, honestly, this sounds really good. But I said, like, is it optimized for Amazon? He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, would you realize that Amazon's not just another Shopify or like another site you just
Yeah.
put up. It's like it's an algorithm you have to teach and have to understand and get used to. So I was like, you know what, let me put it through our software and let me see where you're holding with keywords. So I put it through, and I'm like, you're not even 5% optimized for any of the keywords you should be indexed for, or anything. Meaning it sounds great, but you missed out all the keywords that are good for Amazon specifically. And you can still keep your copy, but have them in the description or the back end, or things that people don't see. So a quick golden nugget, like you said, is oftentimes putting keywords in Spanish or misspellings.
Mm,
People don't understand, and like
that's
people
big.
in America still speak Spanish, but they type it
Yeah,
in
it's a big
Spanish.
community. Yeah,
A very big community, and people underrate that. So just by putting it in your backend, you'll be indexed for it, you'll be found, and you'll get purchases easy
yeah,
just by doing that. So if your competitor's not doing it and you're doing it, that's a huge thing. And same thing like misspellings and stuff like that. So those are very big opportunities that you could be putting in your backend of your listing and greatly benefit from.
that's great. Now, when it comes to doing the research of these keywords that you want to start implementing and adding to your listing, what is usually the type of procedure you like to do? Do you like to look at your top competition, or you focus just on a seed keyword and you ramify from there? What is usually your approach on that to find those keywords to start? Yeah.
A bit of both, but I don't put the main focus on the competitor. And the reason is that just because something is working for him doesn't mean it's working for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what strategies they're using, and yes, they could have a keyword in their listing. Doesn't mean their sales are coming from there. I like to focus on the data that's showing, hey, these keywords have this search volume, and by implementing them, you'll start getting this many more searches. So we look at the competitors for reference, for ideas, and see what they're doing and where they're lacking, where we could fill in. But
Yeah.
our main focus is to go to the core. See, this is a keyword. And these are all other related keywords to it that are not in your listing that we could be putting in, and you can start gaining search volume for.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, keyword research is top one. I mean, if you're using, as you mentioned, you might review your competitor, but maybe your competitor have an extra feature or an extra material that you don't have. Then you start focusing on keywords or terminologies
That don't
that
make
don't make
sense.
any sense,
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
you
hundred
waste your
percent.
time during the launch phase for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a whole topic in itself. Maybe if you want to have me back another time.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's say you do the research, of course, you have the best list. Now, the second mistake I see a lot, which maybe you have seen for sure as well, is that they have the best keywords and everything, but they position them incorrectly in terms of priority in your listing. I mean, you could have the best list, but if you put the best keywords, let's say, on your description and the worst keywords on your title, you're doing everything wrong, right? So,
Yeah,
can you maybe briefly touch on what is usually your priority system in terms of distributing these keywords around your listing and why? Yeah.
for sure. Title and bullet points by far the number one priority. Things that don't make so much sense, or whatever, I would save them for the description. And then if it's like really like no connection to your listing, you put in the back end of your search terms. Very important, even just to start with the title. Big mistake people are doing is putting their brand name first on their listing, and many people are like, no, you have to, but it's not true. And this is a number one tip I've been telling people, and they
Yeah.
implement it and they've seen great results right away. Reason being is for a couple of different things. Amazon gives you relevancy for the first 4 or 5 keywords that are in your title. So if you're wasting that to put your brand name that no one knows about, at least yet, then you're just wasting your time, and you're wasting space. So it's very important that you're going to be putting the first 4 or 5 keywords are going to be about your product. Besides that, when people are searching, half your title or whatever of your title is showing. You don't want people to see the first thing about your product, your brand, and then have to understand what the product is. You want to put the name of your product and the main keyword, boom, the first thing, so they'll see it, they'll understand the product, and it's not taking so much room of just your brand name. So that's very important in itself. If you really want to add your brand name, then add it to the end of your title, but it's already displayed there on top of your listing whenever people click on it. So that's a number one thing that I would say, which is a golden nugget, so to speak, is that people have seen great results when just take away your brand name from your title. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the branding name thing, it comes from all the Facebook posts and everything we're seeing out there that says some people have seen Amazon imposing the change on you, and then they block your title, things like that. So I think that's where the misconception maybe comes, right?
Yeah. So I mean, but the thing is, you could still, like for example, like, oh no, it's for branding, but you could brand your listings without putting it in your title.
Yeah.
That's where graphics come into a very a very big play in your listing. Is that
That's
graphics are
correct.
very important. People underrate it, and we could touch upon that just to explain a lot of mistakes people are making, and people underestimate the power of it.
Yes, for sure. I mean, just before we touch maybe in the briefly the graphics, as you mentioned, I think very important point that you brought out is that the first 4 to 5 letters on your title are key to Amazon.
Words, 4 to 5
Words,
words.
words
Yeah.
correctly. And if I'm not mistaken, that's also what basically defines your canonical URL, which is very good for Google, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's there's
Mm,
so many topics within
mhm,
the topics, but
mm,
that's also another big thing. Google really picks up, your Amazon, and there's so much potential there. So there, going back to Google SEO quickly, if you optimize your Google SEO to reflect your Amazon SEO, then you're golden, because you're going to start
yeah.
showing up on the first page of Amazon for on Google for your Amazon product.
That's great. Good. So now going back to the graphics side of things, which actually I think is going to overlap with a question I had regarding A plus content. Um, so in A plus content, there is this all type of infographics you can include in them, and there is sometimes the misconception that it's a waste of time because some people might say that everything that you put in there it doesn't index, which I know some people disagree with that. So I
Yeah.
want you to have your touch on this, what you think and how you use the A plus content to benefit on your
Sure.
SEO.
You already see the smile on my face because I get this question often, and it's a huge thing that people miss, understand, and again underestimate. A+ content is very important. You're getting to own more real estate on your listing. When someone is scrolling down, a little boring description, they're just gonna blend into all the other product details. No one's gonna see it.
Mm,
It's your time to shine. You get 6 infographics on top, right? 6 or 7 infographics. After that, then you have no more space to talk more about your product. So if Amazon's giving you more space to put graphics,
mm,
to put whatever it is, to be in your face, to bring out your selling points, then why wouldn't you do it? So the reason why a lot of people have this misunderstanding, and another big mistake that people do, is they upload the A+ content or ABC, and they put the words like on the image itself, right? So they just upload the design, but
yeah.
no wording next to it. So like, oh, my listing's not doing good or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't have a description. He's like, yes, I do. It's like I should just write like a pre-written paragraph, just to explain to people. But it's a very big mistake because people put the design thinking they can't put a description, but you 100% could,
Yes.
and that's where Amazon picks up all the SEO from, and the indexing. And that's where you want to put your keywords. So you could still put a design, but also put a description under it. That's a very big mistake people are making.
That's great. So basically, when you go about to upload an image, let's say on A plus content, that field that is called image alt, basically kind of relation that you can add.
Hmm.
Have you
Yeah.
seen those keywords also indexing, right? If you add keywords in there or not?
Yes, but there's no way to really know, honestly. A
Sounds
cool
good.
trick that I don't know how effective it is now, but it used to work at least, is that whenever you upload your images to Amazon, you should save the file name as the keywords that you want to rank for.
Yeah, I have heard about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a cool, fun trick. I wouldn't rely on it, but it's a cute little cherry on top.
That's great. Good. So now that we're touching on indexing, I know it happens a lot that you might be using the keywords correctly, but for some reason it doesn't index, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you have encountered those issues. So can you briefly
Mhm.
touch on what is usually the root cause of that and how people can attack to fix it there?
Number one thing, I see you're in the wrong category, or something is
Mhm.
messed up with your category. That's right off the bat. You've seen it all the time. Or, for example, we were working on a men's cologne, and we're pushing hard for the keyword men's cologne, and he just wasn't ranked. So then I looked and I see this guy posted his product in the women's cologne category, like literally opposite. And it wasn't indexing or ranking, and that's the reason why. So number one thing is making sure your category is correct, or your listing is 100% there. And obviously, if your listing has the keywords inside, but it's not indexed yet, what you need to do is you need to start showering some PPC onto it. So Amazon sees you're actually selling and converting with those keywords, because it might be too early. Another trick and a golden nugget that I found very, very effective is that whenever you launch a new listing and want to get indexed really quickly, the best thing is to add question and answers to your listing. So you can ask a friend, hey, can you ask this question?
Mm,
And within that question, put that keyword a couple of times. So let's say you're selling like, I don't know, like a kitchen knife, right? So is this kitchen knife stainless steel? So if you just keep putting that in, and then you as a seller answer and also use those keywords, Amazon, that's the easiest way for them to index and understand about your product, and it works. It works, man, like wonders.
That's great.
Yeah,
Good. I mean, thank you for sharing that. For sure, that's a
yeah.
very good gold nugget. Now, I'm pretty sure you have also seen out there that some people have started to use the subject matter again because there are some software tools that now allow you to kind of push that to the back end. So, can you just briefly touch if you have seen benefit by using subject matters, and if so, how you use them?
Well, sure. So, I mean, a lot of categories don't have it for some
Yeah.
reason. So it's very hard. So, like, let's say when we make a listing, we would include it, but a lot of people are like, hey, it's not there. So it's a little hard. So, yes, obviously, the more information you feed to Amazon, the more they understand your product and it will benefit you. But again, if not all categories have it, then it's not much you can do. Also, you want to make sure you're not just stuffing random things into your listing that don't make sense, or you don't put them in a place they don't belong.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Hmm.
So now let's say you have everything optimized, you have the right keywords. I think it would be great to briefly touch on how we make sure we rank properly on those keywords. I mean, we know the typical PPC, the typical maybe influencer marketing, things like that. So I don't know if maybe you can briefly touch on other methods you have seen working out there and that you would advise to, so people can take, of course, advantage of a fully optimized listing. Because if you don't bring the traffic and you don't make the sales, that's gonna be a waste for sure.
For sure, for sure. So just to touch upon what a fully optimized listing looks like or sounds like, it's not just okay. Like, so we just spoke about all about the keywords and making sure it's set up and how you have all the best keywords. But if your graphics aren't on the same page and you're not eye
Yes.
to eye on that, then you're wasting every single penny on any ads or anything you're going to be running. It's so important. I can't stress it enough how important your infographics are. It's not just going to hire someone off Fiverr to make you graphics, because you could do that anywhere. It's being able to understand
Yeah,
what Amazon shoppers are looking for and how to sell your product. It's very important to keep it clean, informative, and straightforward. That people understand why they should buy your product, what the benefits are, what the features are. You also want to. That also helps when people making an impulse buy. They don't have to go snoop
that's
around your
correct.
listing to learn about your product. They're just looking at infographics and add it to cart. So that being said, if your infographics are really really up to date and they're on par, and someone could really understand your product, your main image is good, all your keywords and everything is fully set, that's what's considered optimized listing.
Yes,
Fine. So once your listing is truly optimized, then what you start to do is to drive outside traffic. That's what Amazon likes to see the most. Amazon loves when there's outside traffic coming in. But it gets a little bit hard. It is a little bit hard. So I would say PPC is very important when starting to launch a product, even if you're just doing a couple bucks per keyword or whatever budget. It just to show Amazon, hey, I'm selling. Hey, this is my keywords. Because
mm,
jumping into the honeymoon period, it's around minimum 30 days where Amazon's
yes,
learning about your product. So you don't want to waste 1 or 2 weeks trying to get sales. It's worth just invest the money into PPC and say, hey,
mm,
Amazon, these are all my keywords. This is what we should be ranking and selling for. And you're going to get a much better effect over there.
that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think I have seen for sure that people have, as I mentioned, a fully optimized listing images. But if PPC, just as you're touching, if you're spending a couple of dollars for some reason, it's like Amazon doesn't want to give you any priority and doesn't start to relate you
Exactly. You
to
can't be
theirs.
cheap. You can't be cheap when it comes to Amazon. You have to just start off with the right foot. A lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to launch my listing. If it picks up, maybe I'll send more into it. The reason why your listing is not picking up is because it's not fully optimized. It's not looking good. So I would say if you want to do it right. Don't do half a job, because you're just going to get half a result.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for
Hmm.
bringing that advice.
Yeah.
Now, do you think there is any other questions regarding listing optimization or SEO in general that you think I might be missing that could be valuable for the audience? Yeah, because
There's
I know
so
it's
much,
very extended.
honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's this topic could go on for hours and
I
hours.
know, I know. Yeah,
On top of my mind, I can't really think of anything, but it's just very important to make sure that everything is just looks clean and it's easy to digest.
for sure.
People are very visual. You have to make sure that's why your infographics are very important. But in regards to SEO standpoint, make sure your listing sounds good, but also has those Amazon keywords in there, and also not making your bullet point like. I think the bullet points is becoming the next description, because people fill it up and
Yeah,
capital letters, and
like
just too
this
much going
big,
on.
like
Yeah.
all the
No,
characters.
just keep it simple. Talk about your product and still be able to accomplish, which is very easy, to have all the right keywords in there to be fully optimized.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah,
Sure.
I think that brings a wrap for today. I mean, I think we covered very good topics in terms
Yeah.
of nuggets,
Short and
everything.
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, we even start to shift towards product launch. If we go in there, it's gonna take another 2-3 hours. So it's
Minimum. Yeah.
yeah. So that's great. I mean, first of all, I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate your time and also all your knowledge.
Sure.
I know you bring a lot to the table. But before we close today's episode, I want to give you a few minutes so you can briefly just touch on all your social media channels, your website, your agency, all the places where people can find you and get in contact with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, our website's very simple to remember, AmazonSEO.com. It's actually
That's
legit.
good.
It's real. Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to remember. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, be careful with Amazon coming after you and taking the
No, I
domain
know,
for
I
you.
know. So it's not. It's I know it's not our company name. We're just
Yeah,
but and yeah, AmazonSEO.com, and we're also very active on LinkedIn over
great.
there. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Good. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to include all those links in the description so people can definitely get in contact with you. Okay.
for sure,
Well, yeah, let's wrap everything today. And thank you once again, and definitely see you on the next one. Okay.
for sure. Thank you
Bye.
again.
See ya.